I love my challenging games. Learning a combat system and basically mastering it is so damn satisfying, as well as fighting super bosses and trying a really hard challenge in a game that I love is just so much fun and provides extra content. From Souls games to Kingdom Hearts Level 1, I've done a host of video game challenges, and my friends came up to me and said, "Hey, have you played Ninja Gaiden?" So I went onto the PlayStation Store and purchased the Ninja Gaiden collection, which comes with Ninja Gaiden 1 Sigma, Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma, and then Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, because for some reason they decided to change the name. And what I was most surprised about was how many of my favorite action game mechanics were present here. Now, this was an original Xbox game, and the actual original Ninja Gaiden was on the NES, so this game goes way back, and a lot of my favorite games took inspiration from Ninja Gaiden. From the gruesome challenge to walking into a boss room and seeing the enemy doing some weird shit with an outrageous design, then you go into a boss fight and it's all telegraphed attacks and you could learn it and basically no damage it. I was so surprised how much fun I was having and how much of the things I love from these new games like Dark Souls or Elden Ring were present here. Now, Ninja Gaiden is actually a lot faster than a lot of the other action games I played, and that's because you're a ninja. So you're going to be bouncing off walls, doing a bunch of backflips, parrying, dodging, all the sorts. And there's even a jump that gives you iframes that is basically like a dodge. So you can go in from dodging to jumping, dodging to jumping. Now, I think one of the biggest negatives of this game is the camera and the movement that goes along with the camera, at least for the first Ninja Gaiden. Sometimes when you're doing the parkour, the camera just loses its mind, and you won't even see an enemy coming from off screen. The movement is extremely fun in this game, and I have basically mastered it to where I can get around the place really easily, a lot better than I did when I originally started. But at the same time, no matter what you do, there will be points where your camera gets stuck in a corner and everything just looks completely wonky. When you're in a nice room and every enemy has enough space and you're jumping around doing all your backflips and swallows, everything is extremely fun. Probably one of the most fast-paced action systems I've played personally. There is room for a lot of depth with this combat system. There's a whole bunch of weapons you could use. I want to say up to like 15 different ones, from great swords to nunchucks to your normal dragon sword. And each of these weapons has different combos and has a different speed to them. You could definitely settle on a favorite weapon, as I use the dual swords most of the game and then favor the great sword at the end. But one of the greatest things about this game, as I was going through my first playthrough, was certain bosses or enemy encounters, if you swap your weapons to something, it could help greatly compared to the normal weapon you were using. There might be enemies where great swords are more benefited. There might be enemies where the nunchucks will keep them in a combo. Using a bunch of different weapons and trying to learn them will definitely benefit you, and I really appreciate that. I was talking about a move called the swallow earlier, and when you jump and click triangle, you'll basically cut the heads off of your enemies. And this was a really fun movement mechanic that is not present in any other action games I played. You basically have a jump that is another form of a dodge, and since it takes you a certain distance, you have to really master it, or you're either going to fly off a cliff, hit the wrong enemy, or just hit a wall. But when you learn that swallow, you will literally be flying back and forth, just slicing heads off like there's no tomorrow. Now, you probably noticed a lot of Dead or Alive characters are in this game, especially the protagonist, Ryu, and a lot of the combos in this game have button prompts, and it's super fun to try to pull them off. It'll be like X, triangle, X, X square, and once you learn these, it'll actually benefit you in a lot of ways. Basically, keeping your enemies staggered and keeping a combo going the whole time will benefit you greatly. You want to also execute enemies in a way where they're on the ground, you can click triangle and basically stab them. But if you do these combos, sometimes Ryu will literally slam them into the ground at the end of the combo, which does so much damage, you basically already killed them. Now, the game is chapter based, and you'll basically be going through kind of linear areas, but you could definitely explore a lot to find some heals, which are very scarce in this game. Heals are very important. And after you reach the end of a chapter, you'll fight a boss. Sometimes they even give you Rachel for one of the side chapters, because in the Sigma collection, they added her as a playable character. Now, the main point of this game is that it's challenging. My friends recommended me this because they said it would be almost harder than Dark Souls, and I love my challenging action games. Now, Ninja Gaiden, while having this reputation, I don't think always did it correctly. The majority of this game was totally fair and super fun, but there were certain occasions where it felt like the game was totally against you, and almost like the devs had a laugh. Now, I understand if that was the point of this game, then that's totally cool. There might be some games that just literally want to kick your ass. But when it comes to games like Dark Souls or a lot of challenging games, usually the developers are rooting for you. It might be brutally challenging, but they want you to win and they give you enough resources. Now, while everything can be countered in this game, and pretty much you could go through the entirety of the game, speed run, no hit at all, there is certain points where it could get you stuck or just be blatantly annoying. I remember one point I was stuck in this one spot. I had 0 heals and I actually had 1 HP. And in front of me were these giant triceratops and a lava pit. Now I could go through those and parkour it, or I could go backwards to try to get some heals from enemies, because every enemy either drops heals or money. Now, the pit before me had giant triceratops in the smallest little circle. It was almost impossible at 1 HP to kill one of them and hopefully get a randomized heal. It took me hours to parkour it perfectly to get ahead to finally get to a shop to get a heal. Now, while I play a lot of action games and I had the perseverance to do that, a lot of people will not. And it was honestly ridiculous, and there was no satisfaction received when I beat it. It was just like, this is absolutely ridiculous. How do I get out of this? That usually is all the areas, though. Thank God the bosses were all mostly well designed. One thing I didn't agree with the difficulties was the higher you raise the difficulty, the more mob enemies they would put with the boss fights. Now, I'm not a huge fan of that. If you know my tastes, I don't like mob enemies with bosses in almost any game. Now, this game, it's better, because you're so fast as Ryu, you're a ninja, and going and killing the mobs will possibly drop you heals, which actually helps you with the more difficult boss of the higher difficulty. So it's not totally terrible, and they did design it and balance it around this, but I can't say I had totally fun with it. When I was doing a lot of the bosses, I was like, man, I wish I was just fighting it one-on-one, but they had a couple more moves or did some more damage. Difficulty complaints aside, though, 95% of the areas and enemy encounters in this game were fair and just brutally challenging, and I just had to learn it. I am curious to see how Ninja Gaiden 2 and 3 stack up in this department. I definitely think games like Dark Souls have done difficulty and challenge better than this, but the combat system here and bosses are so damn fun, it doesn't hurt it too much. I still had an amazing time with the challenge of this game, and all in all, the combat systems is now one of my favorite. I'm doing the trials right now, which is a whole bunch of little mini missions that give you even more challenge than the base game, and it is so much fun. I'm glad this is here to give it more content, because I wasn't done with the game when I finished. I was like, there was more weapons I wanted to use, more weapons I wanted to upgrade. There's a whole lot you could do with this game's combat. I think my favorite thing about Ninja Gaiden Sigma, though, was how ridiculous it is. All the enemies are so absurd, and the cutscenes just had me downright laughing. It's one of those Japanese games where everything is so out there that it's like fun, like what is gonna happen next? And every time I went to go see a new boss, I couldn't wait to see the weird, disgusting design they were gonna throw at me. The remastered collection also did an amazing job with the performance and visuals. Everything is in 4K, 60 FPS, and everything looks nice. When you're not getting your ass whooped, if you look into the distance, everything looks really pretty. I did boot up Ninja Gaiden 2 as well, and the camera and movement felt a bit more refined, so it's definitely the fact that it's an older game where the camera issues and things come into play, but there's also some censorship I'm aware of with this collection. Now, I don't think the first game is touched, don't quote me on that, but the second game I do know is touched, and the gore aspect is taken away, and they put in this like purple mist for the body parts when they fly off. I am definitely not a fan of this. I don't think it's going to taint my experience, but it's pretty weird that this collection of all the remasters has this. It was so cool though, going back and seeing some of my favorite mechanics from recent action games be present here and basically see where they came from, where the inspirations came from. It was super fun, and I'm definitely going to be playing through 2 and 3. I would be absolutely shocked if From Software did not take inspiration from some of these games. Some of the boss fights, I literally felt like I was in a Souls game, but it was so cool because I was playing as a fast ninja, and it was like, oh, this is where that stuff came from. It was really interesting, and it's always interesting going back to the more retro side and seeing where these games came from and how they all improved. I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion around Ninja Gaiden Sigma. This was a very fun first playthrough, and I want to know, did you guys have any experiences with this game? Whenever I ask anyone about this game, they have the funniest stories to tell me, so let me know, did you ever get soft locked in the game? How hard was it for you? Did you play it on Master Ninja? I'm really curious, so I will be letting you guys know how my journey through Ninja Gaiden 2 is going, but for now, I leave you with this video and discussion in the comments. Oh, and one more thing. The ghost fish are the dumbest designed enemies I've ever seen in a game. Throw it in the trash. Don't bring it back for Ninja Gaiden 4. I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.